You are watching Sound Candy Talk live.
Wa Kikuyu. Shukran sana Mheshimiwa. Welcome to the pre-session interview. And the National Assembly has just come from around 3 weeks recess. What are some of the priority businesses that you are going to handle?
Asante sana Mariko kwa mwaliko wako. And as you said, we've come back from a 3 weeks very short recess, but a working recess. Basically, which gives members of parliament in committees time to look at the budget estimates. And this time they were rather busy because we are looking at both the supplementary estimates, supplementary 3, and the budget estimates for the next financial year. That's 2025-2026. And from that tells you that the first or priority business will be budget-related bills from the supplementary consideration of the reports of the Committee of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on both the supplementary estimates 3 and the budget estimates for the next financial year. Then you consider the supplementary estimates appropriation bill for supplementary 3, and also the appropriation bill for the next financial year 25-26. We also have the finance bill 2025, which also before the House and under consideration by the committee, that has been bill 2025. Then there's a division of revenue bill, which we must also consider and agree or disagree with the Senate. I anticipate that we may need to go into mediation because of figures that, from what I hear, Senate is proposing and what was agreed on in the National Assembly. Therefore, once we agree on the division of revenue, then we'll be able to go on and complete the budget making process. There is also the county allocation of revenue bill. All these are budget-related bills, including the equalization appropriation bill for 2025. We also have consideration of nominees. You know, there's a National Police Service Commission nominees whose names were sent to Parliament when we were on recess. That will come up. There's a IEBC commissioners consideration of those names. And there also are tribunal on the Public Benefits Organization, Benefits Organization Disputes Tribunal, which the Chief Justice has also sent to Parliament for consideration. Is among the nominees that we'll be considering. I think other than that, and the reservations, of course, you remember the reservations that the President sent on the Conflict of Interest Bill and the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism Financing Amendment laws that the President sent back to the House. That is also lined as part of our priority business, because we will need to consider those reservations by the President and pass a vote in one way or the other. There are bills that we carried on to the session just before the recess. The value added the VAT amendment bill of 2025, which was a small amendment from something of the last finance bill, the culture bill, National Council for Population and Development bill. And of course, there are also new bills that have come that we published over the recess, like the Virtual Assets Bill, the Kenya Roads Amendment Bill, which we just published before we went on recess and has been considered by the Committee on Roads and Transport. And there are the NADCO bills that were in Senate that have now been transmitted to us. That's just a tip of the iceberg of the very busy session that we have for about 5 weeks till we break for the next recess.
Okay, so on IBC nominees, some of them are facing court cases. Some people went to court and said some of them are not qualified. So does that mean it's going to delay that?
You know, ideally, the names were sent to Parliament by His Excellency the President, and Parliament, when the Speaker receives the names, he sends them to a committee, the committee that will consider those nominees. And the committee has been going on with their work because you cannot stop people from going to court. But at the same time, you cannot stop a parliamentary process in between. And I think over the years, even the courts have agreed with us, and there is immense precedence that courts do not injunct parliament from doing its work until the end of that process. And therefore, we are here to conclude that process. The names are still before the committee. The committee is considering, and we'll get to know from the chair of the committee whether the committee has been able to finalize with that process.
Okay, so the ruling of the court will be inconsequential? Or?
I am not saying it's inconsequential. I am saying courts do not injunct parliament midstream.
Okay.
And therefore, irrespective of what went on in court, and I'm not even sure what was said in court, the committee had the names sent to them. And at least I do remember about two or so weeks ago, about 10 days ago, the committee did advertise for public participation. And I know members of the public have been also submitting memoranda in view of the ongoing process. Therefore, it's an ongoing process.
Okay. On Finance Bill 2025, the government, there are measures intended to finance the government's 4.34 trillion the budget. And you say there are adjustments to value-added tax. Are they going to be adjusted upwards, the VAT?
No, there are two different things. The value-added tax amendment bill of 2025 is separate from the finance bill of 2025.
Okay.
The VAT amendment bill is a small one-clause amendment correcting something that was done in last year's tax laws that stopped KRA from, or rather stopped people who are benefiting from certain exemptions, especially for capital projects, from continuing to enjoy the tax exemption beyond, I think, 31st of December 2024. And therefore, this VAT amendment bill is just giving that exemption a further period of 1 year to December this year, because these are people who had investments in the country, and these huge capital investments. And I've seen many of them, people who are in the manufacturing sector, and huge infrastructure projects that are ordinarily given tax incentives, because we are bringing in investments that are creating employment for Kenyans. And therefore, inadvertently, the tax amendment laws of 2024 that were passed in December last year restricted that period up to the end of the year last year. So is just to extend that. The Finance Bill 2025, again, as I said, is under consideration by the Committee of Finance. I think they have also been doing public participation, and I expect maybe in the next week or so they should be able to be through and bring it to the House for consideration.
Okay, so Finance Bill 2025, is it going to have some more taxes? Or?
No, I think if you listen to the CS National Treasury, they said it is almost a tax-free finance bill. And, you know, I know there was a lot of propaganda before even the bill was published, even before the National Treasury finalized the process. And you remember the Honorable Leader of Minority raised it on the floor of the House because people had already started a campaign of disinformation and misinformation. Unfortunately, and I remember saying on the floor of the House, that is what happened, the fate that befell the 2024 bill. A lot of negative vibe and misinformation and disinformation was sold out there. Therefore, it was important that when the Leader of Minority raised that issue, we spoke out to it. And I saw even those who are very busy on TikTok and other social media platforms, misinforming and disinforming Kenyans, stepped back. I want to appeal to them. This, all bills before Parliament are public documents. You can simply click onto the National Assembly of Parliament's website. You'll be able to see all the bills before the House. Take your time, read. If you don't read, consult people who can help you to read and understand what is there, so that we end the culture of misinformation and disinformation.
Okay. There is also another bill by member for Aldai, Mary Kaitany, the Communication Information Amendment Bill, that is raising some controversy. Some people are saying that it violates the Data Protection Act.
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond to those critics?
First, you must understand that members of Parliament, in their individual capacity as members of Parliament, are at liberty, either on their own motion or on behalf of other interested parties out there. including their constituents, to propose privately sponsored bills. And the bill by the member for Aldai, Honorable Mary Ketanyi, is such a private member's bill. It's not a government bill, so I have really not paid keen attention to it being a private member's bill. But public discourse and engagement is part of legislation making, and that is why the Constitution and Article 108 provides for public participation. And Article, I think, 118 provides for public participation, for the public to engage. And therefore, all again I would urge is people to read, listen to the honorable member. I saw her in one of the stations last night trying to explain what she intends to achieve with the bill. And it's only when you listen and understand the import of anything that you get to know really what it is about. There will be an opportunity, because she's just made a proposal, a legislative proposal. It's not a bill that's already before the House. So when it is before the House, it will be read the first time, it will go for public participation, and everybody, every Kenyan has the right to make their proposals. And following public participation, because again, that is what I saw Kenyans never understood last year. You remember with the Finance Bill 2024, all the issues that Kenyans had raised that they were not very happy with had been removed from the bill of the Finance Bill 2024.
So it's about Kenyans are not reading it.
They did not understand the parliamentary processes. Because Kenyans, when the committee returned verdict on the bill, and they said, for instance, tax on bread. We have agreed with the sentiments of the public during public participation that we do not need to tax our bread. We have agreed with the public that we do not need to impose a motor vehicle circulation tax, which, by the way, was even sitting in the wrong act of parliament. It was under the Income Tax Act, and a motor vehicle owning a motor vehicle is not an income. Therefore, naturally, that particular provision was dead on arrival in parliament. And therefore, the committee agreed with everybody who appeared before them, speaking about motor vehicle circulation tax, speaking about tax on bread, and all those things were removed from the bill. When we remove them, how do you remove certain provisions of a bill from that bill before it becomes a law or an act of parliament? Is by amending. And you remember, those on social media started a new campaign. Do not amend, reject. I mean, if you are not amending, then what legislation are you making? The process of legislation is about amendments. In actual fact, there is no law you create from the blues. Because, for instance, you've just spoken about that one by the member for Aldai. She's most likely amending the Kika Act, because there is already an act of parliament that exists. And therefore, what she'll be doing is looking at that act and proposing amendments. If there are certain provisions of that bill that you do not agree with, give your views during public participation. It is not the member who is proposing the bill who will decide what goes into the bill. It is a committee that will be listening to the members of the public, and they return that to the House with a report that you can read and see whether your sentiments were carried through. So last year, all Kenyans needed to do was to look at the Finance Committee's report and learn that every other proposal they had made during public participation was factored in the final report. And it is part of the amendments that were being proposed on the 25th of June, which they said reject. And I have said it before, Mark, that the bill as it were on June 25th, 2024, we passed it in December. Nobody got hurt, as they were saying. Nobody died, as we had seen before. Because the campaign of disinformation had dissipated, we passed the bill as it were in 4 different bills, achieving the same objective without losses to the country. More importantly, Mark, is that Kenyans had been misinformed. Oh, when this bill passes, you will not be able to afford diapers and sanitary towels. Kenyans are still buying diapers and sanitary towels. Because we tried telling Kenyans, we are protecting you young people who need jobs. Because the manufacturers of these diapers and sanitary towels are here in Kenya. We do not need to import diapers and sanitary towels from China, India, UK, the Americas. We are growing their industries when we are killing our own industries. But nobody was listening because of a campaign of misinformation and disinformation. They told us, oh, your cows will be taxed, your goats, your chicken, everything, your land will be taxed. Now, I dare ask Kenyans today, whose goat has been taxed? Whose chicken has been taxed? Or whose land has been taxed? And we pass the laws as they were. Therefore, it tells you the fallacy of the social media misinformation and disinformation. But unfortunately, because there are those who make a living out of that campaign of disinformation in the civil society and elsewhere, and those who are very active on those social media platforms, they are within their rights, but they should desist from misinforming Kenyans.
So I think members of parliament also need maybe to do more in
sensitization. And I think we took that challenge, and that's why you saw when we passed those tax laws in December, we started the process by the National Treasury first going out to the public and asking the public, submit your proposals. Fortunately, what people brought to the National Treasury as proposals is exactly what we had rejected in June. Manufacturers came and said, you need to protect our industries. You need to tax the finished goods that are coming from far Asian countries and Europe, so that you protect our local industries, so that we are able to grow our manufacturing, create more jobs locally for our young people. Unfortunately, it's the same young people who are being misused by the disinformers and misinformers.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. You can now make your final remarks, because we are going to end the interview, the discussion.
Yes, we're about to begin the house also. Mine is just, as I said, to appeal to Kenyans to pay attention to what goes on in Parliament. Members of Parliament work as the people's representatives. We do what we do on behalf of the people. And there is no time that we will pass legislation that is detrimental to the well-being of our people. We always have to weigh between what is good for our people and what we need to do to get our country to grow. Trust us as your leaders that we will do what is right, and pay attention to what we do. Take your time and read and understand. What you don't understand, seek the clerk's office. The table office here is open to members of the public. You can simply just walk in, seek information, and you get that information, or simply go to the website, send whatever questions you have to us, and we will be able to respond to you.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. That has been the Member of Parliament for Kikuyu, who is also the National Assembly Majority Leader, Kimani Ichungwa, talking to PBU and briefing us on the priority business as the National Assembly resumes from around 3 weeks recess. My name is Tilio Marco, and we are now going to continue with the live broadcast of the National Assembly that is resuming today after 3 weeks recess. Na msikilizaji, tunaendelea kupata matangazo ya moja kwa moja kutoka Bunge la Taifa, na leo
the live broadcast of the National Assembly.